Hello, lovely sewing friends. How are you? I decided to show you guys a few little insights into my sewing studio today because I have a very exciting announcement. I now have a sewing ebook for you guys available on my website. So I'm going to talk you guys all through this. It's 38 pages, so it's pretty hefty, but I'm going to show you guys all the examples in my sewing studio. Because a lot of the times when I see these kinds of things, I'm like, but do you really use them? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So I'm going to talk you guys through this, and we're going to go through my sewing studio at the same time so you can actually see it all in real time as I use it and how I kind of like have my sewing studio set up. But before we begin, I just want to tell you guys about what's been going on over here recently. So I had some time over this weekend, so I decided to go through my fabric stash and get out a whole bunch of my sewing fabrics that I absolutely love, that I have made things out of previously, but now I want to make those little Wilbur the Waste-Free whales into. So I'm going to go through all my fabric stash, and I've started cutting out all my whale bits, all here. There's so many, look. So I've got them all, I've got some of them cut out, but if you can see here, I've actually got quite a lot of fabric yet to go through. And then I actually have all of my fabric that's down here. So there's quite a lot to get done, but in saying that, I think this is a great opportunity for me to show you like why certain things work and like how I'm able to do all of this stuff in like such a easy, enjoyable way as well. Because I dropped a fin, sorry. There we go. Because as you learn to sew, it's a hobby. So you want it to actually be enjoyable. You don't want to start sewing and it not be enjoyable, and therefore it's kind of like, well, you kind of don't want to do it because it's not enjoyable. So making something enjoyable is always the best way to maintain doing a new hobby as well, because if you're new to sewing and you're just picking it up as a hobby, you have to learn how to learn. So in saying that, I'm going to take you guys through this. I'm so excited because, as you might have known, I launched a sewing course at the middle of this year, and that was really good. But one thing I noticed is that a lot of people like to have a full downloadable guide so that they can go off their computer or off their phone to reduce the screen time. So I created this. So it's kind of like the course goes into really detailed, and it has video tutorials, whereas this one is just written. So I'm going to take you guys through it. So the way I teach is like very in-depth, and it also I always love to explain to beginners not only the how to do a sewing technique, but the why, as to why you're doing the sewing technique that way, so that you can then apply that learning to other areas. So saying that, we start off with chapter 1 here, which is all about the sewing equipment you're going to need. So for example, a sewing machine, Gutermann thread. Highly recommend Gutermann. Ride or die for Gutermann. Just get Gutermann polyester thread. It's the best one possible. And then like your LDH scissors. Speaking of, not one pair, not two pair, 3 pairs, all in my sewing studio, and they work. And the difference between LDH sewing scissors and other sewing scissors is that these ones make you feel like you know what you're doing. That is a good pair of scissors, so highly recommend. And then we've got some pins. These are the pins that I use. They're Birch Creative quilting pins because they're really nice and long, hold a lot more fabric in one go. Then there's the unpicker, and then snips as well. I think my snips are over by my sewing machine, but you get the general gist. So this goes through all of your sewing equipment, and the one thing I love about this is that this is all stuff I now use. I use this stuff in every single sewing project, right? And I've been sewing for 20 years. This is tried and true and always good to work with. So personal recommendation, also the best recommendation out there. Also, these are things that I would recommend to beginners because I wish I had these recommended to me as beginners. Then we go into different types of fabrics. So when you're a beginner, there's a lot of different names and things and whatnot that there's so many types of fabric. Like for example, this is a Tana lawn. This is a cotton drill. This is a cotton. This is a terry cloth. You know, what fabric do I start with? Linen, calico, and cotton. Those are your three main beginner basic fabrics. And in this guide, it tells you everything you need to know about your fabrics. Then, see, this is why I always need to keep some water near me whenever I'm talking about sewing, because I just go off on tangents. But it is for a very good reason. So then moving on to setting up your sewing machine. And the thing with setting up your sewing machine, right? There are so many easy things that you can mistakenly do when setting up your sewing machine that you don't realize was the mistake until you start sewing. So for example, the tension control in that. So here we have threading your sewing machine, winding a bobbin, inserting a bobbin, changing the foot on your sewing machine. And then it also says like what foot you should start with, straight foot, by the way, your stitch selection, your tension control, which is what I just mentioned before, which is something that will affect your stitch. So learning these basics of setting up your sewing machine is really easy once you know how to do them, but obviously you got to learn how to do them. So in this guide, it takes you through the basic steps on getting yourself set up on your sewing machine. And if you need some more video tutorials, that's when you go to the course. So if you can learn off like written blurbs there and pictures and whatnot, all good. You're good with this. You're good with the ebook. Whereas if you need proper like visuals, go to the course. That's where that course goes so further in depth with 21 videos. Then threading your sewing machine, which is something as a beginner, once you learn how to do it once, you're good. But again, if you need some more help, go to the course. That'll get you set up with the best parts. I'm going to leave some things out in this little description because there's things like setting up your workspace, different types of machine stitching. So the three main ones that you'll need to know is a straight stitch, a zigzag, and a back stitch. So the straight stitch. A zigzag is mainly for like doing anything with knit fabrics. So that is very specialty to the fabric. And then the back stitch is when you reverse over the back stitches, the straight stitches at the start and the end of your stitch line. So the difference between the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch is, see this top I'm wearing here, it's not got stretch, whereas my t-shirt, it does. So if I was to use a straight stitch on this stretchy fabric, it's going to pop, whereas it's working to the fabric. So learning about the different machine stitches is really important, especially when you start trialing it out with different types of fabric, because different fabric requires different stitches, mainly with straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. So that's just detailed in there. Again, more information in the course. And then, oh my gosh, okay, so seam finishes. So in here are 3 tutorials on how to finish your seam, like the raw edge of your seam allowance. The first one being pinking shears. Wouldn't you know, I've got my LDH pinking shears right here. Perfect for beginners. But with pinking shears, you only really ever use them for the edge of your fabric, which is good if you're doing a lot of beginner-friendly sewing. However, they are an investment for a very small part of your sewing process. The other one overlocking, which is more it's a different type of machine entirely. And then the last one is a French seam, which is something that is used on really lightweight fabric. But all three of those tutorials are included in a PDF download that's all included in the ebook as well. I've got to press through this because I'm aware that like these videos can go quite long, and I want to show you guys my whales as well. Pressing and ironing. Oh my gosh. So I was ironing the other day without a pressing cloth, absolute idiot right here, and I burnt a hole in my first ever Liberty silk fabric. I managed to work around it, but I was not happy about it, and I was like, of course I did. Like, of course, I'm giving a tutorial on how to do ironing and pressing and whatnot, and I burn a hole in it, of course. So this goes into the difference between ironing and pressing a seam, because I did not know that they were different. I had somebody else tell me. And then pressing a seam allowance, and then pressing using a pressing cloth. So not only do you have to like change the settings on your iron to suit your fabric, but also you have to change how you iron to suit your fabric. So that's really important. And see, all of these little tips and tricks throughout here they're so useful to know before you make the mistake, right? So like, I didn't know about pressing cloths until I was in university. And at that stage I was like, you know, really far along my sewing journey, about 10 years. And it's like, oh, I wish I knew about this sooner, because now I know to do it. I'm going to do it going forward, you know? So then as a beginner in this sewing pattern, in this ebook, there's 3 different sewing patterns. And so this part here is all about how to read a digital sewing pattern, because a lot of sewing patterns are digital nowadays from indie designers like myself, that you actually have to read them a little bit differently than you would in a shop. So that's all about how to read a digital sewing pattern and how, like, what's a lay plan and how does it all work. And then here is all about choosing the right pattern and how you need to take certain things into consideration, like your skill level, the project type, the size and fit, and the different style options, so you can make the best informed decision on what you want to make. And this is so useful because any one of these things can trip you up. For example, if you're choosing a sewing pattern, like, and you're sewing a raincoat, for example, well, sewing with that type of material might be a bit difficult because it has a waxy finish, so you might need a different sewing machine foot and a different sewing machine thread and needle and all these little things that, unless you know about, you're going to stumble into along the way. So just ticking off these boxes of your skill level, project type, size and fit, and style options will help you avoid some of those like speed bumps along the way. So that's really good. Cutting fabric. So there's different ways you can cut your fabric, little did you know. So there's certain things that you need to take into consideration before even cutting into your fabric, like preparing your fabric, pre-washing. Pre-washing is something so important because it basically takes the first shrink out of the fabric, and you would hate to make up your garment, like this top, for example, make up this top and then wash it and it shrink a size. So pre-washing is always really important. Like knowing how to lay out your pattern pieces on the fabric, which is basically like orientating the pattern pieces the right way so that the print's all running the same way, so that the grain lines are in order, so that you're cutting a right and a left and not 2 rights or 2 lefts. By the way, I've got to talk to you about something very quickly before I forget. So the best way to like understand a sewing pattern, when it says cut 2, it means cut 1, cut 2. If it says cut 1 pair, this is where it gets interesting. Cut 1 pair means a right and a left, right? So think of it like a pair of shoes. You have a left and a right. So when you cut a pair, it's a left and a right. Whereas if it says cut 2, it's 2 of this thing. So for example, a yoke on the back of your like shirt or a sleeve, it's cut 2, so that you've got there and there. Whereas if it says cut 1 pair, it means the left side of the jacket and the right side of the jacket. So this is why you need this ebook. Even that alone will save you when you cut into the fabric incorrectly because you haven't read this in this ebook. Well, you've watched this now, but I'll tell you what, there's so many more top tips in here that will save you and your sanity and your fabric at the same time. Then cutting tips. So using sharp scissors. Then the snips, right? Snips are really useful for making the notches that you will need to line up your pattern pieces later on when you're doing your sewing patterns. And then a rotary cutter, which, of course I have mine here. See, I have all of these things in arm's reach in my sewing studio, so you know I use them. So that's that. And you know me, I never keep things close by if they're not on my radar. So now we get to the sewing project. So, I'm so excited. So, first of all, you start off with a starter scrunchie. Now, like I said, I do not use them if they're not in arm's reach. These are all my scrunchies that I've made in the tutorials for this ebook and the course. So these scrunchies can all be made within like under an hour for a beginner. If you're more an advanced sewer, I would say like half an hour, but like so perfect, so easy to sew, just straight line and inserting elastic, beautiful. Then, like I said, and then there's a bucket hat. So I've got my hair up at the moment, but you get the idea. I love these bucket hats so much. I wear these so much in summer. I'm actually going to put my hair down so you can actually see it on properly. So, and look at the top stitching on that. And I left the edge raw, but you can actually also do a bias bound edge as well. And it's fully lined, so it can be reversible. So, like, Christmas presents, sorted, done. I love that so much. Can you imagine? I just want to go to the pool now. Like, that's gorgeous. And then the last one, which we discussed in our review, I really like this hat. Oh my God, I feel like I should be in a garden somewhere. Oh, I love it. So then the last pattern is the summer skirt, which is the one I was wearing last week in my video. And if I hadn't already made that as a sewing pattern for you guys, I swear to God, I would advocate for it to the ends of the earth, the same way I do about the Will with a Waist Free Whale, because I cannot tell you how many compliments I've gotten on this skirt already. That's the thing, I feel amazing in it. I absolutely love it, because this fabric, right, I bought this fabric the day I arrived in Melbourne and was exploring the neighborhood, and I'm about to sneeze. No. I went exploring and I found this fabric and I loved it so much. So it's kind of like so nice that this fabric is a part of this ebook, and it's just so beautiful and like, and that it is in here, and it is so easy to make. I'm getting my neighbor who's never been on a sewing machine before. She's going to come around next weekend and we're going to make that. We're going to make her a skirt because I wore it out on my birthday dinner and she said she really liked it. And I was like, girl, we gonna make you one. So she's coming around and we're going to make her one. So many of these skirts will end up in my wardrobe, and they're so adjustable to any size because it's just elastic. That's all it is in it at the waist that makes it to your size. So, mwah, I love that skirt so much. I think I actually have to make quite a few more because I'm wearing the first one so much. And then any beginner needs to know this kind of stuff, machine troubles and how to fix them. So for example, thread tension issues, what it looks like and how to fix it. And then skipped stitches. This one always happened to me and I never knew why. Turns out, wrong needle that you're using. So this is why I made this ebook. So you know what's wrong and how to fix it. The next one, fabric jamming underneath the foot pedal, underneath the plate. That always happened to me. I wonder how you fix that. Well, I'm so glad you asked because it's right in here. And then the last one, why the needle keeps on breaking. Even if you're using if you're using the correct needle and you're sewing on like a basic piece of calico fabric, why does my needle keep breaking? Tells you right here, And then goes into sewing machine maintenance and how to maintain your sewing machine. And also how to replace your needle and general machine maintenance. So that right there is, oh, no, I forgot, got two more things. Introduction to repairing your wardrobe. I love this section. This is the first time I've done like repair or make to amend on your wardrobe. And it's so good to learn how to repair your clothes because the most sustainable garment you will ever is the one that you already own. So if you can sew on a button or hem a pair of pants, these are all tutorials in this ebook that you can start on today, and they will literally take you sewing on a button. How long does that take? Like half an hour, 20 minutes start to finish, but then you're saving that thing from landfill or from ending up in a charity shop or not wearing it and it just staying in your wardrobe and not being worn. So that's one. Hemming a pair of pants is something I get asked for all the time because it is something that everyone needs to learn how to do. So straight stitch with the hemming the pants, learning how to hand stitch with hemming on a button. So try saying that really fast 10 times. 2 tutorials on how to repair and maintain and fix your wardrobe, all in this ebook. And then it just talks about how sewing is a life skill and how it leaves a positive impact, and upcycling and repairing your clothes is sewing for sustainability. And then just some general Q&As right there. And then little final thoughts. But I think you can see from this video already how much I love this ebook and how it is something that I know will benefit so many people, because when I first began learning to sew, I had to learn to sew from a book that was in print for like 10 years before it got to me. But with the internet, you can get so much more information and so much more depth on that information. And because I've been sewing for 20 years, I know what works and what doesn't. Because I know, hey, when you're sewing with really thick fabric and you go to pivot at a corner, actually pivot at a 45-degree angle, sew 2 stitches and then pivot again. You know, these little things don't get updated in these old textbooks. But with something like this, you know, it is up-to-date knowledge that I've written on for the last, 2 or 3 months that has been culminated from 20 years worth of sewing knowledge. And in this ebook, right, it has like a whole bunch of beginner guides. It has the 3 sewing patterns and it has the 2 tutorials on how to repair and make your wardrobe. And then it also has like a sewing glossary. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on updating it with more and more information as time goes on. And also, speaking of updating, I don't know whether you guys know this, but I released this new sewing bow pattern. See, I've been very busy, So this is something really cute. I love this, right? I just love this. So like, imagine that on a little girl's pinafore or something, or like a hair bow tie or something. Like for Christmas, I'm going to make so many of these. But yeah, I've got my bows. I've got my bow, and then I've got my wales all around me, and I've got all my sewing equipment, and I'm so happy right now because I love this ebook, and I'm so glad that I've finally been able to release it. And the feedback that I've been getting already with it is really, really great, because I love taking the time to invest into beginners in the sewing community, because it is difficult to get started. It is. And this is a really great first step for you if you're just getting into sewing and you don't have a lot of time or money for it. I totally understand. I totally understand, because when I first learned how to sew, I was going to like $2 shops and getting the bulk pack of thread and kept on wondering why my stuff kept on snapping. And it's like, God, you just want some answers, you know? And you just want to get to the stage where you're making really great stuff, you know? And you come across these little problems every now and again, and you just get so angry because you want it to work out and you want to enjoy it. But if your needle keeps on snapping and your thread keeps on breaking and you can't cut things out properly and you don't know why your machine keeps on jamming, it gets frustrating and then it doesn't become enjoyable. Therefore, you stop doing it and you're kind of back to square one. But with this, I poured so much effort into it to make sure that it answers the questions that beginners have and the questions that I had when I first started sewing. So I think that's a really great place to end this video, but I love that skirt so much. I love that skirt. I'm going to wear it tomorrow. I love that skirt so much. I'm going to make so many of those skirts. And this is the thing, like 20 years on and I still love sewing this much. I love sewing so much that, look at, this is my workspace and I've never been happier. You see, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be here teaching you guys. I'm supposed to be doing all of this stuff and showing you guys, you know, the top stitching and how I didn't align it perfectly on there, and, you know, how to get these frayed edges and how to enjoy your workspace, and, you know, why I choose, you know, these pins and not these pins, because they're a little bit, my preferred pins are a little bit longer so I can pin my gathering more with less pins. And, you know, this is why I, you know, place things together like this. And so I'm supposed to be here teaching you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed that video. And if you did, can you please subscribe? That would be really lovely. I see that we got 5,000 subscribers and I think that's so great, because I started my YouTube journey right here at this table. I remember I set up my little tripod there, and, you know, it's my first video. I was like, hey guys, I'm Annie and we're going to learn how to sew together. And look at us, you know, we're 9 months in, we're at half an hour nearly. And I hope that you guys are enjoying watching these videos as much as I am enjoying creating them, because this is like, I talk for a long time on these videos, and the reason why I love talking for so long is because I love sewing and I love teaching you guys, and I love, you know, getting amongst all my fabric. Ah! Look! So this is the scrap fabric left over from this top, right? So I need to make a whale out of this. I do not think I can do it, but I will most certainly try. He will definitely be a very scrappy whale indeed. So on that note, I've got so many bucket hats over here. I've got like 6 just hanging up ready to go. But yeah, thank you. I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I'll see you next week. And goodbye. Happy sewing.